Articulated buses started life almost a century ago in 1937 in Milan, Italy. This was quickly followed by 15 Super Twin buses in the United States. It wasn't for another 20 years when they really started to take off. Hungarian manufacturer Icarus became the dominant face of this new vehicle niche, with their highly popular trolleybus model operating across Eastern Europe. The first mainstream model in North America was their 286 model. The buses were built as a joint venture with their primary components built at Icarus' factory in Hungary before being assembled in Los Angeles, California by the Crown Coach Corporation. The vehicles only saw 9 American operators in a new segment, as they faced several challenges specifically surrounding the articulated joint. The specifics of these challenges will be mentioned later in this video. The most prevalent customers were Houston with 50 units, and Portland's TriMet, who ordered 87 out of the total 286 that were built. The next evolution of the North American articulated lineage was another Icarus 286 joint venture, this time with Canadian manufacturer Orion in the mid-80s. Only 3 operators in Ontario ordered the model and ran them from their debut in 1985 to the early 2000s, with the Toronto Transit Commission being the most prolific operator. Moving slightly back in time is where one of the first home-built articulated buses was being developed. The Government of Ontario, in collaboration with General Motors, created the TA6012N and TC6012N. Built in their St. Eustache plant, the buses were cannibalized with the front and rear ends of the already old New Look buses from the 1950s. The TC60s were even more bizarre, with the front fascia replaced with the cab of the newer classic bus. Trials of the vehicles would not only expose flaws of the current design, but the entire class as a whole. The complex mechanism connecting the two frames made the buses more expensive to operate than their regular counterparts, but did provide a higher passenger capacity. Only 53 of the vehicles were built for Ontarian agencies, with Mississauga Transit, the TTC, and OC Transpo as the largest operators. The market would see a big leap in 1988 with the New Flyer D60. Unlike previous articulated bus designs, the New Flyer D60 was a custom design with fiberglass body panels attached to a tubular steel structure. This helped to reduce weight and improve performance. The D60 was the first in this niche to see any kind of meaningful success. It was modest, but had double the customers of the previous models. The bus would continue production until 2006. In 1995, the next evolution of the D60, the D60LF, would be introduced. The vehicle and its variants came with some improvements to accessibility with its lower floor and a simplified body design like the other low-floor platform vehicles. The D60LF quickly became the go-to option for most articulated fleets at the time, and were essential for high-demand routes. BC Transit, later TransLink, ordered the D60 and D60LF for its expanding B-Line brand, and OC Transpo used their D60s for their Transitway. In 2002, the D60LF was offered with a hybrid option, the DE60LF. Like other early hybrids at the time, they didn't get much success, with Washington State being where they were the most common. The LFR version of the D60 and DE60LF were introduced in 2007, with the same or similar customers to the regular D60LF, which around this time were replacing the experimental first-gen Arctics from the early 80s and earlier built D60 units. The low-floor platform Arctics came with several powertrains, with the most popular being the Detroit Diesel Series 50 and Series 50 EGR, as well as the Cummins ISM. The D60LF would be discontinued after 2009 and the D60 LFR by 2013. Both would be replaced by the Excelsior platform in the early 2010s, with an even lighter frame, naturally, and new engine options. The XD60 exploded in the US as the most popular variant, with the others like the XN60, XDE60, and XE60 carving out their own niche or became a region's dominant force. As pointed out numerous times on this channel, New Flyer were and are still unmatched in the articulated niche. After the 3, Orion would never create another production model longer than the standard 40-foot models. South of the border also saw very little competition. California-based Gillig would never make an articulated model, but there was North American Bus Industries, or NABI, which became the closest competitor to the low floor line. That was until it became a victim of New Flyer's acquisition phase in 2013. This left the Excelsiors as the only option for American agencies, which now might be a problem of the country's trade issues. I guess now is Gillig's chance to jump on the Arctic train. A few manufacturers briefly sold their European vehicles like the Vangool AG300, but only saw a handful of operators. The most recent competitor to Flyer's dominance belongs to everyone's favorite bus maker, Nova Bus developed the articulated model in 2009, and it was already on the back foot. It did see modest success, but New Flyer was already well established in a niche. Nova had to hope for a miracle, like their competition seeing a Boeing-esque decline, for their Arctic to properly compete, which hasn't happened yet. The fact that agencies like TransLink, one of Nova's largest customers, hasn't ordered any of the LFX or LFS-A is quite telling for how dominant New Flyer are in the articulated segment. Well, that was nice and all, but why do they suck? They seem to be very good at their purpose and well used. Well, about that. Articulated buses have a 35 to 40 foot front section and a 15-foot rear section connected by an articulated joint that flexes when the bus turns. Simple, right? Let's have a quick look at the mechanics of this operation. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, this might take some time. Articulated buses come in two different types, the pusher Artic and the puller Artic. Pullers are exactly what you would think it is, a semi-truck with a passenger compartment that pulls its rear section to get it to move. Most Arctics come in the pusher configuration, where the engine is located at the rear section and powers the third axle. This pushes the front section forward to get it to move. The articulated joint in these vehicles consists of a turning mechanism that allows the sections to navigate a corner. The bellows is essentially the iconic bendy section itself. It protects the joint from any external obstacles that would cause damage. The joint also has physical hydraulic valves on older models, electric sensors on newer models, or a combination of both, to act as a safety net to prevent overbearing of the joint. On most, if not all Arctics, air brakes are installed on all moving axles to ensure safe stopping. Despite their length, the mechanism allows articulated buses to maneuver through tight corners quite effectively, sometimes better than the standard buses in some scenarios. It also increases the maximum capacity by around a quarter, which is a key on high demand corridor routes that exist. But there is one notable flaw. They're essentially cooked right when they leave the production line. Arctics do not last very long in service, and it doesn't really matter what platform it's on. The main failure point is the articulated joint itself. Like in any part or joint, constant movement eventually wears it out, until the fatigue is severe enough to need to be replaced. The articulated joint issue is not just in the buses, as the original Mark II Skytrain cars face a similar fate with their articulated joints. The difference between the Mark IIs and similar vehicles and the articulated buses is that they have a completely different running environment. Trains have a more gradual departure and arrival cycle, and the undulations, such as hills and curves, are also smoother. This puts a lot less pressure on the articulated sections and allows them to last, such as the 40 to 45-year-old Siemens U2 cars seen operating in Alberta. Buses do not have this luxury. Roads are not as smooth, movements are more unpredictable, hills are steeper, and outside factors can make trips more aggressive for the vehicles as they make up for lost time. Because of these factors, articulated buses face severe conditions out there in the wild. That in turn creates more wear and tear, and eventually domino to a shorter service life, and TransLink's D60 LFRs were a token victim of this reality. They started service in 2007 on the 99B line, but in 2019, they were moved to Burnaby Mountain to run on the 145 and 143. Knowing how these articulated buses work and looking at the route, yeah, they're not gonna last long, are they? For anyone that doesn't know, the engine has to push itself to its limits to go up the mountain, the brakes when going down the mountain, and the joint is consistently pulled or pushed into the frame for minutes at a time. Not to mention they have to run fast at the top, are often full during rush hour, have to navigate tight turns, have a traffic light to deal with near the summit, and a tight roundabout. Oh, and they did this for 5 years. These buses are so cooked, bro. To no one's surprise, after seeing how torturous this route is for the Arctics, the first of the 15 D60 LFRs, 8117, passed in late 2023. The rest were finally seeing some reprieve from the mountain in April 2024, ironically after this video was made, but the damage was already done. Just listen to how healthy this joint sounds. The last D60 LFR was retired in 2024 and scrapped, and what made this retirement cycle worse was that most of them were refurbished not even a year before their extinction, possibly meaning that TransLink didn't even know the wear and tear these buses were going through. Ouch. And the D60 LFRs aren't the only ones. The newer Excelsiors are now showing signs of gradual decay and similar wear. This sound is the sign of a fading Arctic. The articulated buses are also not very smooth to ride on, even with their lower center of gravity. The XDE60's hybrid system makes the buses accelerate faster than their diesel counterparts, but with them running on the rapid bus routes, acceleration and braking are very aggressive, which is putting light strain on the passengers, but importantly in this context, heavy strain on the vehicles. Most, if not all of TransLink's Arctics are desperately seeking a career change, one that will probably never come. Their essential assignments on routes like the R4, 99, and R5 are slowly tearing them to shreds, which makes their long-term future an interesting dilemma. Despite them kind of sucking in the reliability and lifespan department, there is no doubt that they are essential for high demand or high capacity routes as people haulers. They aren't really designed to offer a smooth ride, but that's what the suburban bus or inner city coaches are for. And the main job that they're designed for, they do very well in it and continue to be the popular choice. Some agencies even have BRT or bi-articulated vehicles in some regions that run like trains. As long as cities continue to see explosive growth and ridership demand, there is no stopping the articulated bus segment and will only continue to improve and get more successful from here, even despite their service life issues.